Good morning to you all. Welcome to Gremlin Coaching Podcast, and this new episode is called From Secrets to Story: How Shame, Gossip, and Conformity Shape Our Inner Lives and Our Societies. We often think that gossip, verbal violence, polarization, or social coldness or detachment start in public spaces, on social media, in the news, in politics. But in reality, it all starts much earlier. It starts at home. In many families, secrets aren't kept to protect intimacy. They are kept to protect an image, a persona, against a failure, a mistake, depression, a bankruptcy, a divorce, or a different child. These realities are buried under silence, not because they are insignificant, but because they threaten belonging. Very early, we learn an unspoken rule. Some truth will make you lose love. So we adapt, we hide, we over-adapt, we learn not to disturb. And when truth has no safe space to exist, it does not disappear. It gets distorted. It becomes gossip. It becomes judgment. It becomes emotional distance and detachment. So, to understand how this distortion begins, we need to look at the central psychological mechanism that is shame. Because a secret is not only a social behavior, it is first and foremost an inner experience. Psychologically, shame is not the feeling of having done something wrong. Shame is the intimate belief that something is wrong with me. Brené Brown emphasizes a crucial point. Shame is a relational wound, not an individual flaw. It arises when a painful experience, whether a failure, a fear, or humiliation, is lived without a compassionate witness, without a space to speak, and without repair. So ask yourself this question: at what point in my life or in your life did you need to be seen and no one was there? In some families, silence becomes a moral value. Being quiet hides behind loyalty. Not showing up and not showing who you are hides behind dignity. Being enduring hides behind the value of strength. But very often, this system of values come from unhealed traumas: wars, exile, poverty, collective or individual humiliation, colonization, loss of status. What was never told becomes a rule, and fear becomes morality. Kafka illustrated this in The Trial. A man accused without explanation is judged without dialogue. Shame becomes structural, and the body adapts. Then curiosity decreases, emotional expression closes, and silence becomes the image of safety. But humans cannot remain silent indefinitely. So when shame cannot be expressed inwardly, it seeks an outlet outward. This is where silence begins to turn into gossip. And here is a key paradox. The more a family or society forbids vulnerability, the more central gossip becomes. Because gossip is not a connection, it is displaced vulnerability. When a person cannot say, "Here is my fear or my shame or my fragility," they say, "Did you hear what happened to them?" In The Crucible by Arthur Miller, accusing others becomes a survival mechanism. Fear circulates, but no one can name it directly. Psychologically, gossip has three uses: relief anxiety, creates a false sense of belonging, and diverts attention from oneself. But it destroys trust, empathy, and relational safety. Camus in The Plague shows how refusing to name suffering gradually numbs an entire city. So when gossip becomes routine, it ceases to be seen as a problem. It becomes a social norm. And from there, something deeper emerges: conformity and emotional detachment. So over time, these behaviors become normalized, and we learn not to ask questions, not to feel too strongly, and to stay within the norm. You know, even passive participation in gossip, laughing, staying silent, looking away, carries a psychological cost. Often, it is motivated by fear. If I don't participate, I risk being rejected. But this conformity produces superficial relationships, chronic fear of exclusion, and a society based on performance rather than presence. Hannah Arendt spoke of the absence of thinking, an emotional and moral anesthesia. So, when a society becomes emotionally numb, it takes something powerful to awaken sensitivity. And historically, art has often played this role. We have to view art as an act of resistance and an act of rehumanization. Art expresses what systems cannot contain. In An Enemy of the People, Ibsen shows that telling the truth leads to exclusion. In Dead Poets Society, authenticity is punished. In the lives of others, music awakens the humanity of a hardened man. Munch's The Scream shows pain expressed in a deaf world. Art bypasses intellectual defenses. It speaks directly to the body and to the nervous system. But if art can awaken consciousness, we now need to understand how these intimate dynamics extend to the collective level, shaping our society and our relationship to the world. So as promised, I will take this talk from the individual to the world through that cascading effect. An individual who hides the pain cuts themselves off. A family that avoids truth teaches children to play roles, to not be themselves. And a community that normalizes gossip destroys trust. A nation that avoids vulnerability polarizes. A numb world trivializes suffering. It is not a lack of information that we're suffering from. It is a lack of emotional closeness. So the essential question then becomes, how do we break this chain? How do we move from gossip to story, from shame to vulnerability? So the question is speaking with empathy without self-denigration. Moving from gossip to storytelling does not mean saying everything or saying it recklessly or exposing yourself without limits. It is not self-accusation, self-humiliation, or losing dignity. So building an empathic story means giving a human form to experience without harming yourself or others. Literature and mythology have always shown us how to do this. Antigone does not justify herself. She does not diminish herself, and she does not beg. She simply says, I acted according to my inner law, to my value. She transformed an act judged scandalous into a story of meaning. She does not say, I'm guilty. She says, here is what guided me. And this is exactly what an empathetic story is, speaking from values, not from shame. I will give you a psychological example, the situated I narrative. In narrative psychology, we talk about the situated I. I speak about my experience. I name my emotion. I do not generalize, and I do not blame. Instead of people are mean, hypocritical, or toxic, we say, when this happened, I felt alone and unsafe. And this type of story opens understanding, reduces defensiveness in others, and maintains self-esteem. Brené Brown emphasizes, vulnerability is not public confession, it is sharing with clear boundaries. I'll say it again. Vulnerability is not public confession, it is sharing with clear boundaries. In the Odyssey, Odysseus does not start by recounting his exploits. He begins with his losses, wanderings, and mistakes. But he never denigrates himself. He does not say, I am weak. He says, this is what I went through. His story creates empathy, opens up hospitality, and drives alliance. The story transforms a suspicious stranger into a respected guest. We can even play a role, a real life example, to see how that, unravels. So imagine a simple situation. Someone fails professionally. In the gossip version, he's never been able to manage his life. In the silence version, nothing is said and awkwardness builds. In the empathetic story version, that period was very destabilizing for me. I doubted myself, I learned, and I'm still understanding what it required of me internally. No over-justification, no self-humiliation, and no attack. Just a narrative presence. In Manchester by the Sea, the main character does not give long speeches. He does not endlessly beg for forgiveness. And he definitely does not beat himself up. He inhabits his story with care. And the film shows something essential. You can acknowledge responsibility without reducing yourself to your fault. And this is exactly what story allows, in contrast to gossip. Gossip freezes, story opens. Shame imprisons, story connects. So you'll ask me, how to build an empathic story? It is not obvious, but it's not too complicated either. It is done through 4 simple steps that anyone can use. First, we situate the experience at that point in my life, and we tell our story. We name the emotion without judgment. I felt overwhelmed. I felt anxious. I am feeling isolated. We express the meaning of learning. It taught me something about my limits. It taught me something about my needs. And we maintain, in 4th place, a healthy boundary. I share this because it matters to me, not to be judged, but to be understood. This framework prevents self-destruction, dramatization, and dependence on others' approval. So when this kind of storytelling becomes possible, whether in a family, in a school, in a group, in society, gossip loses its function and shame loses its power. Speech becomes a space for connection rather than control. And this is how, slowly but surely, we move from a world based on fear and image to a world based on meaning, relationship, and dignity. So when families choose story over secrecy, when communities choose curiosity over judgment, when societies choose vulnerability over control, people begin to feel again in their body, to connect with each other, to recognize others as human. And this is how the world can transform, one story at a time. So thank you. Thank you for being here and listening. Please subscribe to the Gremlin Coaching Podcast and share it, this episode and others, with all your friends and family. I cannot wait to see you in my next episode.